There are two types of silences in life. There's the kind you share with someone on a quiet morning, reading separate books under the same blanket. That kind of silence is soft, trusting, safe. Then there's the other kind. The kind where you're surrounded by people, music playing, drinks flowing, and yet somehow, the only sound you hear is the echo of your own humiliation. That was the silence I heard before I stood up and told a room full of people I wasn't marrying Clarinda. Yes, that's her name. Yes, I really did it. And no, I didn't plan it. I didn't even plan to speak at all. I had been sitting there, quietly eating a slice of beet tart on a piece of slate, because apparently, plates are too mainstream now, when it happened. Clarinda told a story. A funny story. One I had begged her not to share. And she shared it anyway. Loudly, dramatically, and with more added details than a Netflix dramatization of a crime doc. She reenacted my emotional spiral during a couple's cooking class, how I accidentally dropped a tray of ravioli, cried in the parking lot, and texted her 3 paragraphs about how life is pasta and I am the boiling water. Yes, I really said that. Yes, I thought it was poetic at the time. People roared. She even imitated my voice. Did a full impersonation, wobbly, nasally, broken. And the worst part? It killed. They loved it. I watched grown adults wheeze into their craft cocktails. And I just sat there. Still. Small. Invisible in a room of my own laughter. She didn't notice me go quiet. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. She just kept talking, piling on punchlines, topping off my humiliation like garnish on a plate. The woman I was supposed to marry in 3 months had just turned me into a character in her stand-up set. And something inside me just clicked. I stood up, without fully knowing what I was going to say. My heart was racing. My throat was dry. But my voice was clear. I'm not doing this. I can't marry someone who thinks my feelings are a ing joke. Yeah, that got their attention. You could hear the espresso machine hiss from the other side of the venue. Someone dropped a fork. One guy actually clapped, thinking it was part of the joke, and then realized it wasn't. Clarinda laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she thought I was being dramatic. Again, she said, "Wesley, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." That's when I said the sentence that would make my phone light up for 3 days straight, my mother cry, and her bridesmaids start a group chat without me. We're done. This wedding is off. And then I walked out. No coat. No keys. No plan. Just the sound of that second kind of silence following me down 3 flights of stairs and out into the November night. But what I didn't know, not yet, was that this moment was the beginning of a truth I hadn't even begun to uncover. And trust me, when I found out next, it made the mockery at that party look like a warm-up act. The funny thing about walking out of your own engagement is that it doesn't feel real at first. You think you're going to wake up, maybe realize it was just a vivid stress dream triggered by too many almonds or something. But I didn't wake up. I walked 2 miles in stiff dress shoes to my sister's apartment, rang her buzzer at midnight, and said, "I think I just left my wedding." She let me in without a word. She didn't ask questions that night, just made me peppermint tea and let me sit on her couch staring at nothing while her cat clawed at my shoelaces. I didn't sleep. I just kept replaying it all. The laughter, her voice mimicking mine, the way she waved her hand like I was a fussy toddler throwing a tantrum, the way no one stopped her. No one looked uncomfortable. Maybe because I never made a big deal about it before. I had always laughed along, smiled, brushed it off. Every time she poked fun at me, I told myself, she's just teasing. That's her personality. But when your personality includes turning your fiancé's pain into party entertainment, maybe you're not as clever as you think. The next morning, I finally checked my phone. 26 unread messages. 4 missed calls from her mom. 1 from my dad. A lot of them saying the same thing. She didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. Please talk before making any permanent decisions. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed space. Around noon, I got up and took a shower. That's when I saw it. Written in the fogged-up mirror, left by someone before me, probably my sister, were the words. If you feel small around them, they're not your person. I just stared at it for a long time, like it was a sign from some higher power, or maybe just common sense I had ignored for years. Clarinda still hadn't apologized. Not really. The last text I got from her just said, "Can we be adults about this now? You embarrassed me in front of everyone." She was embarrassed? That was when something in my chest twisted. I called her. She answered on the second ring, already defensive. Thank God, you're finally being reasonable. Clarinda, I said. Just answer one thing. She went quiet. If I did that to you, if I turned one of your worst moments into a joke at a party, would you still marry me? More silence. Then she said, Wesley, don't turn this into some morality quiz. You're always doing this thing where you turn feelings into logic like it's some puzzle you need to solve. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, phone in hand, feeling the full weight of something I hadn't wanted to admit before. This woman didn't love me for who I was. She loved how I fit into her life. Quiet, predictable, harmless. But that wasn't the worst part. Not even close. Because 3 days later, I found something that changed everything and made me realize she'd been preparing for life without me long before that party. 3 days after the party, I went back to our apartment. Not because I wanted to patch things up. I was still angry, still raw. But because I needed clothes, my laptop, and the box of letters I had written her over the years. Yeah, I'm that guy. The one who writes real, handwritten letters even in 2025. Most people don't know what to do with that kind of effort anymore. Turns out, neither did Clarinda. She wasn't home when I arrived, which I preferred. I didn't want another conversation. Not yet. I moved quietly, half hoping I'd walk in and feel something like regret or guilt, or maybe longing, something that would make me question walking away. But all I felt was light. The apartment had always been filled with her energy, her noise, her presence. Now it was quiet, peaceful. And in that stillness, I noticed things I hadn't before. Like how none of my photos were on the walls anymore. Or how my favorite mug, the one she always said was ugly but lovable, like you, was missing from the shelf. Little details, unsettling ones. But I tried not to overthink it. Maybe she'd boxed them up already, thinking I wouldn't be back. Or maybe she was just angry. I didn't want to create drama in my head. Until I opened the hall closet. It was empty. Not just she took her stuff, empty, I mean stripped. As if someone had moved out completely. No jackets. No shoes. No scarves. No perfume smell. Gone. And that's when it hit me. She hadn't just started packing. She had finished. I dropped my bag and walked to the bedroom. Same thing. Half her clothes were gone. Her side of the dresser, empty. Jewelry box, missing. She hadn't just been reacting to me walking out. She had already been leaving. The weirdest part? Her plants were gone. She loved those plants. I once joked she'd save her monstera before she saved me in a fire. Now, not a single leaf left behind. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to slow my thoughts. I told myself maybe she was just being dramatic. Maybe she thought I wouldn't come back and wanted to prove a point. But then I saw it. Her iPad, left on the nightstand. Screen cracked in the corner like it had been dropped. Still logged in. I shouldn't have opened it. I know. But curiosity is louder than conscience when your heart's been shattered. The first thing I saw was a chat. Not just a random one. It was pinned. A name I didn't recognize. Elliot, work briefcase. I tapped it. What I found wasn't just cheating. It was planning. They'd been messaging for months. Not just flirty texts. I'm talking about real conversations. About trips they'd taken without me knowing. Things they'd done in my apartment when I was working late. Discussions about how soon she'd be free of the wedding and able to start a life without the guilt. One message from just 2 weeks ago read, he still has no clue. Honestly, I think he'd thank me if he knew the truth. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking. This wasn't just betrayal, it was mockery. Deep, rehearsed, and worse than anything she ever said at that party. She wasn't laughing at me that night because I embarrassed her. She was laughing because she was done with me. Because, in her mind, she had already moved on. And I was just the last loose end. But she had no idea I'd find this. No idea what I'd do next. And to be honest, neither did I. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't stop reading their messages. Not just because of what they said, but because of how casual it all was. The way she joked with him, called him L, sent him selfies from our couch, using the same stupid filter she used to send to me. It was like watching someone recycle your memories for someone else. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe this was just an emotional affair. Maybe nothing physical happened. But no. She sent him a photo of them at a cabin in March. I remember March. I was visiting my dad in the hospital that weekend. She said she couldn't come because she was too drained. She was drained because she was on a getaway with Elliot. I didn't even get mad. I felt numb. Like my body had moved 2 steps behind my brain and couldn't catch up. I just kept scrolling. She told him she hated how I moped around after fights, that I always wanted to talk about feelings like we were on a sad podcast. She told him he made her feel free. But here's what really messed me up. One message, from months ago, long before we even got engaged, she wrote, "I can't lie to him forever. He's not a bad guy. He's just not it. Not it." Like I was a sweater that didn't fit right. Like I was her placeholder until Elliot was ready. And that's when something inside me shifted. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was strategy. Because if she had already moved on without a word, if she thought I'd just vanish quietly like some sad little ghost of an ex, she didn't know me at all. She left a trail, and I was going to follow it. There's this moment that happens after betrayal, where grief turns into curiosity. Not healthy curiosity, not, let me process this and heal curiosity. No, I'm talking about the kind that makes your pulse race, your eyes scan for patterns, your mind spiral. The need to know everything, even the things that might destroy you. That's where I was. Sitting on the living room floor with her iPad in my lap, staring at weeks of messages she never thought I'd see. But texts only say so much. I wanted to hear her voice. I needed to feel the truth, not just read it. So I did something petty, something I'm not proud of. I opened her voice memos. There were dozens of recordings. Most were random, reminders, half-finished song lyrics, weird humming sounds. But about 8 of them had a little lock icon. Hidden. Archived. She didn't even know they were synced to the cloud. She thought they were secret. I clicked on one, and there he was. Elliot. His voice. Low, smooth, deliberate, like the kind of guy who has opinions about wine and corrects people's grammar in group chats. I recognized it instantly. I had heard that voice before. At one of Clarinda's gallery nights, months ago, she introduced him as a friend from work. Said he was harmless. I remember shaking his hand. I even remember apologizing because my hands were clammy. He smiled and said, "That's okay. Some people sweat when they're anxious." I laughed. He knew I was nervous around people. Clarinda probably told him. Maybe that was part of the joke. The voice memo was short, just 45 seconds, but it felt like a bomb. "I can't keep doing this in his bed, Clar. It's weird. You keep saying you're going to tell him. But every time he comes home with takeout and a poem, I lose more respect for you. End it. Or I will." I replayed it 4 times. That line. Every time he comes home with takeout and a poem. He was mocking me. The poems I left on her pillow. The Thai food I brought home when she had rough days. They weren't just sweet to her. They were ammo for him. I sat on the floor, still in my own apartment, but I felt like a stranger in it. My books were still on the shelves. My jacket still hanging by the door. But nothing felt like mine anymore. Every surface felt touched, used, smudged with someone else's fingerprints. It was never about the cheating. Not really. It was about how long I'd been living in a version of reality that no one else believed in. Like I was in a play, delivering monologues to someone who had already left the stage. But what happened next? That's when things stopped being just emotional. Because later that night, while I was boxing up my stuff and trying not to cry over coffee mugs and photo frames, someone buzzed the door. 3 times. No name. No delivery. Just silence. I went to the intercom and asked who it was. No answer. And then I got a text. From an unknown number. "You think you're the only one who knows secrets." I stared at it for a long time. And for the first time in this whole mess, I felt afraid. I didn't sleep that night. Again, I sat by the front door until sunrise, holding a kitchen knife I had no idea how to actually use, wondering if that text was a prank, a threat, or something worse. Maybe Elliot being smug. Maybe Clarinda getting desperate. Or maybe someone I didn't even know was involved in this now. I wasn't paranoid. Not yet. But something about that message felt deliberate. Like someone knew I'd found something I wasn't supposed to. The text wasn't from her. I checked the area code. It was from upstate. Not our city. I tried calling it. Disconnected. Deadline. I wanted to move on. I really did. But the moment that text came through, everything stopped feeling like a breakup and started feeling like a game I didn't know I was playing. By noon, I needed air. I left the apartment and went to a quiet cafe I used to write in, figuring I could just sit down with a coffee and try to forget the last 48 hours. But the second I walked in, something felt off. Clarinda used to come here too, but she never liked it much, said the chairs were too indie for their own good. Still, I saw something that made my skin crawl. In the far corner, against the window, there was a man sitting alone. Not unusual, but he wasn't reading or drinking anything. He was just staring, not at me directly, but at the mirror behind the counter. Watching my reflection, every time I glanced at him, he looked away just fast enough to avoid eye contact. I ordered my drink, sat down at the opposite end, and opened my laptop just to pretend like I wasn't completely on edge. 10 minutes went by. The man didn't move, didn't take a call, didn't check his phone, just watched. That's when I noticed something else. He had a tattoo on his left wrist. Just 3 small letters. C-E-W. Those were Clarinda's initials. Full name, Clarinda Elise Whitlow. I stared at it for a solid minute, hoping I was wrong, hoping it was a coincidence. Then he stood up, walked outside, and, I swear to God, didn't even glance back. But when I walked out 5 minutes later, he was gone. No car. No sign of him on the street. Like he had never been there. By the time I got home, there was another text. Same number. You should stop digging. You won't like what's buried. That's when I realized I was in deeper than I thought. This wasn't just about a woman cheating on me. This was about people who had been planning things without me for a long, long time, and maybe I was never supposed to find out. I didn't go back to the apartment that night. I couldn't. I walked around the city for hours with no real direction, just drifting, passing familiar places that now felt like sets in a movie I'd been kicked out of. Every coffee shop, every bookstore window, every alley that used to mean something, it all felt distant, fabricated, like nothing in my life had ever actually belonged to me. I ended up staying at a cheap hotel near the river. No windows, no minibar, just a bed and silence. I didn't sleep, again, but I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I made a list. It's stupid, maybe, but it's what I do when I'm overwhelmed. A plain list, numbered 1 to 5. Questions I needed answers to. Who sent the texts? Why did that man have her initials on his wrist? How long had Clarinda been planning this? Was Elliot involved in more than just the affair? What were they hiding? The next morning, I made a decision I'd been avoiding. I called her. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting for it. Her voice was calm, even cheerful, the kind of fake sweetness people use when they know they've already won. Wesley, she said. Finally. I need to see you, I said. A pause. Is this about the wedding or the tantrum? I ignored the jab. It's about the truth. Just meet me. 1 hour. Neutral ground. Cafe Halden. Another pause. She agreed. Just like that. No questions. I got there early. Ordered a black coffee I barely touched. When she arrived, she looked exactly the same as she always did. Hair perfect. Coat buttoned just enough to look effortless. Her expression said she was here out of pity, not panic. I didn't waste time. Who is he? I asked. Not Elliot. The other one. The man with your initials tattooed on his wrist. Her smile flickered. Just for a second. But I saw it. A crack. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Don't lie, I snapped. Louder than I meant to. A couple at the next table glanced over. She leaned forward, her tone sharpening. You don't get to throw wild accusations because you couldn't handle a breakup. This wasn't a breakup, I said. You cheated. Lied. Manipulated me for months. Maybe years. You used me. And now someone's watching me, texting me, threatening me. So stop pretending you're innocent. That did it. She went quiet. Her eyes shifted. Not guilty, calculating. Then she said something I'll never forget. You weren't supposed to find anything. You were supposed to leave quietly. Like always. There it was. The truth. She had been planning this. All of it. And she admitted it without hesitation. Like I was an obstacle she expected to disappear, not fight back. I leaned in and asked her the question I had written in my phone the night before. The one I didn't think she'd answer. Why didn't you just leave me? She looked me dead in the eye and said, because you were safe. And because he wasn't ready yet. She stood up, threw a few bills on the table, and walked out. Just like that. Like it was done. But it wasn't done. Not even close. Because now I knew the truth. She was never planning to marry me. I was her placeholder. Her alibi. Her cover story. And whoever he is, the man with the tattoo, I'm going to find him. After she walked out of the cafe, I didn't chase her. That was the moment I finally stopped trying to make someone stay who had never actually chosen me. I sat there for a while, finishing the cold coffee, letting the truth settle over me like a coat I hadn't worn in years. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was clear. All this time, I'd been mourning a version of her that didn't exist. A fantasy I'd helped build because I didn't want to be alone. I thought loving hard enough would make someone love you back in the same way, that being kind and soft and thoughtful was enough. But the truth is, if someone sees your softness as weakness, they were never meant to hold your heart in the first place. I never found out who the man with the tattoo was. Maybe an ex. Maybe just someone she used like she used me. I stopped caring. The text stopped too, after I sent one message back. I'm not afraid of your secrets anymore. I'm just done with them. And that was that. I moved out of the apartment a week later. Gave away the mugs, boxed up the poems, deleted the photos, not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need reminders of a life I never really had. I kept the plant she forgot in the bathroom. It's still alive, somehow. I named it Closure. The weird part. Once the weight lifted, I started noticing myself again. Not the version she wanted, not the quiet, agreeable, harmless guy, but the real me. The one who makes weird playlists and writes sad poetry and sometimes cries over dumb commercials and means every word when he says, I love you. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I don't stalk her socials. I don't care what Elliot's doing. I don't even wish her well. And that's not out of malice. It's just that she's not in my story anymore. She's in her own. Mine's just beginning. A month after I left the apartment, I met someone at the laundromat. No dramatic twist, no grand story. Just a woman named Nora who asked if I had change for the dryer. We started talking about books, then music, then grief. She had been through her own kind of loss. Not betrayal, just life. We didn't fix each other. We didn't try to. But the second time we met, I gave her a poem. She didn't laugh. She cried. And she said, thank you for writing the thing I didn't know I needed to hear. And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as someone's placeholder. Not as someone's backup plan. Just me. And that's enough.